welcome to the vetting process. I have a very special guest with us today, Andrea Freeman, candidate for mayor of Leominster. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Josh.
Why don't you start out by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Andrea Freeman. I grew up on Air Force bases. So my parents pulled us all over the place. My brother was born in Japan. I was born in Mississippi. We lived in Omaha, Indiana, New York, Hanscom, you name it. We lived all over the place. I went to high school in a tiny town, tiny college town in Western New York that my folks chose because it had the best public education system near where their respective families were. Because education has just been always, still is incredibly important to our family. And then I went to college. I got my bachelor's degree up in Northern New York in environmental studies and economics. In the summers in high school, in the summers in between college, I waitressed, I bussed tables, you did whatever I could to earn the money I need, not from could afford to go to college, but not a wealthy family. And then I took a year off and again worked for a conservation organization, worked at a little public library. And then I went on to grad school. It was pretty much right on from college. I went out to Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point, to have my master's degree in 2 years. Had an assistantship, so I taught introduction to environmental studies classes, worked with faculty, and then got a job straight out of grad school, moved from Wisconsin to Washington, D.C., where for the next 8 years, I worked for the Land Trust Alliance, working with communities all over the country to protect land, forests, farmland, wildlife habitat, you name it, but working with communities. After about 8 years there, I got a call from an organization based in Massachusetts called the Trustees of Reservations. Now the trustees, they recruited me to come move to Leominster and help build and program the Doyle Conservation Center. So that's what brought me here 18 years ago. Met my husband here, Tim Silva. He used to work there as well. And he went back to school, got his degree in library science. He's a public library director now in Air. And for the past 9 years, I have been working for the Mass Public Health Association. I left that job at the end of June in order to campaign full-time to be the next mayor of Leominster.
Let's talk a little bit about your campaign. So why have you decided to run for mayor, and perhaps more specifically, why now?
Why now? Yeah, well, I never thought I would be doing this. Let's just say that. I've worked on a bunch of campaigns. Been a volunteer on other campaigns, other women's campaigns in the past. And I've always supported, been very active community member, active volunteer on campaigns. And I decided to run because there's so much unmet potential in Leominster. There's a lot of good going on here. It's such a great city. It's a great city with really more potential than what I think most people realize. And I want to help meet that potential. And if we don't plan for the future, if we don't involve everybody that's a part of the community and make it easier for people to be involved, we're not going to be able to maintain or get better as we move into the future. As you know, we've had the same mayor for almost 28 years now, and the world has changed tremendously since then. And I want to help reach the potential, focusing on education, economic development, and infrastructure. So that's the why now. The why now. I wanted to stop waiting, stop wringing my hands, and said, okay, I've got the skills as a coalition builder. I've been trained professionally as a coalition builder, trained professionally as a facilitator, worked on community-based issues, on economic and environmental issues, climate change issues, public health issues. I've got the background, I've got the skills, I've got the connections all over the state. It's time for me to focus on my community. And I want to give people a choice.
Absolutely. And you hosted a bit of a town hall earlier this event over in LHS.
Yes.
Earlier this month. It was up in the air up until the event actually happened, whether or not it'd be like a town hall event or a debate. it didn't end up being a debate. Mayor Mazzarella did not show up. So what are your thoughts on that and just him, never even did he give any indication that he wasn't going to show up before he didn't?
I, I didn't have any of the communications with him about it. The student that I worked with said that they didn't get any response after trying a couple times to reach out to him. So I was looking forward to a debate. I think the students, the staff, everybody, the students especially, boy, they asked great questions. I was just it was a fascinating opportunity that, I think my opponent missed a great opportunity to learn more about what students care about and what they're, especially now, almost 2 years into a pandemic. It's a new world, right?
Yeah. And so in the event that you were elected mayor of Leominster, you mentioned a couple issues before, and you mentioned you have a lot of experience in a lot of different things. But in the event that you became mayor of Leominster, what issue or issues perhaps would have to take priority?
Yeah. The very beginning, and again, people talk about the first 100 days, like what would you do in the first couple months, the first 100 days of office, and and I've already made this pledge, and I just want to underscore it. The very first thing I will do, because we need financial transparency, because we need accuracy in how our city works. I will contact, one of the first things I will do is to contact the State Department of Revenue and ask them to put us at the top of the list to have what's called a financial management review. As for almost at least 25, almost 30 years, maybe longer, the city has not had what's considered to be, really a soup to nuts financial review by a totally neutral third party. And this isn't meant to be like anything to slap your wrists on. It's just meant to say, hey, here are some best practices how to do things, and given your city's unique things, here's why you could be more efficient, here's why you could deliver services better for the same amount of money, or even better for less money, and here's how you can be more transparent with the taxpayers and the residents of your city. Because that's, I've lived all over the country. I've never lived in a place that had so little access to information about the city's finances or the decision-making processes. So that's one of the first things I would do.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about education for a second. Our current mayor, Dean Mazzarella, has a historically rocky relationship with the Leominster School Committee, to say the least. And so in the event that you were elected, what do you plan to do differently to make up for the past animosity between the mayor's office and the Leominster School Committee?
Yeah. Well, they say, as a trained facilitator, I know coming together for meetings, you change a meeting, you change a few even small things, sometimes it changes everything. And so when you change it changes the culture of the meeting. I don't mean it changes everything, but it changes the culture. And whether that means you change who is at the table, or you change the structure of the meeting, you change who facilitates, you change the way people sit and face each other, and where, all those things, they change the culture of the meeting. And I would, I've got good relationships with I've got established relationships with all the current school committee members. I know some of the that are running to be, and just having a fresh start, and being able to come together. And what I would first do in all the groups that I've worked with in the past is that we identify not just a vision, which I know the school department already has their vision, but it also means having ground rules for how meetings go about. And that includes, how do we enforce the ground rules, and what are the social norms and the expectations to be professional, to be respectful, to be heard, and then to know what happens if somebody violates those rules, the ground rules, and also adapting them as time moves on. So ground rules are a key tool. In Robert's Rules of Orders, that does a certain amount, but there's more beyond that to have a professional culture moving forward.
Yeah. So mayors of some of like the surrounding cities here in Massachusetts have opted to put like indoor mask mandates because state leadership and perhaps even national leadership arguably have sort of dropped the ball for lack of a better term, and so the mayors have sort of stepped in and done what they can.
Yeah.
Is stuff like that, like mask mandates and those sort of things, something that you would consider for Leominster?
Yes. And especially right now, with the caseload and the community spread so high with the Delta variant, absolutely. And a lot of municipalities around the state have done so already and around the country. My family, when we go inside a store or whatever, we've been wearing masks for the past several weeks. And I know a lot of people, a lot of people bristle at that. And that's a tough way to go, but we have got to slow the spread of this virus. Otherwise, I mean, if people want to be done with this, and everybody I know wants to be done with this virus sooner than later, we have to go about with the science-based tactics to do it. And it's not just one thing, with the masks is a layer, vaccination is a layer, testing is another. These are all layers of protection. None of them protect us 100%. There's going to be breakthrough cases. But the more we do, the we can reduce the risk with the more we do. So yeah.
Yeah. And as someone who goes to school in person now, I've talked to a lot of variety of people, and something universally I've seen is kind of just fatigue with all the masks and whatnot. It's like it's been going on for well over a year now. People are starting to grow tired of it.
People are starting to, I didn't hear that last part.
People are starting to just become tired of it, and they're just
Oh,
tired of the whole thing. Yeah.
I know it. I know it. And which is all the more reason that we need to have community leaders and to feel, to feel like we're in this together instead of having it so politicized. I talked to my mother, she was in elementary school when the smallpox, there was an outbreak in her community, and that was so much of a smaller, epidemic than what we're talking about here. But I asked her about that, and she said, it was just a given. Everybody, as soon as the vaccine was available, everybody was excited, and you got in line, you got there as soon as you could. There was never a question about would you do it or not. And it makes it so much harder now that this whole issue has been politicized about it being a choice, because an airborne transmitted deadly disease is something we have to care about each other for. My mask respects you, your mask respects me.
Yeah. Moving over to a separate issue, previous city comptrollers and record keepers and stuff like that have kept pretty much all of the city's books and like bank ledgers, and it's all been paper-based and stuff like that. I can already tell that you have thoughts on this. If you were elected mayor, would you make steps towards like moving City Hall to the 21st century and like digitalizing all of that?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Josh. That's one of the key steps, and that's what one of the Department of Revenue, the financial management review. If when I invite them in, I know that is going to be, after their jaw kind of comes off the floor, that will be a key priority. And I know we do have a new comptroller now since for the past couple of months, who I understand is working to modernize the city system, but we shouldn't. It's 2020. It's almost 2022. We've had affordable, appropriate, proven technology for decades. That there's no excuse for not having been more modern, more efficient, and to be able to to have reports issued on time to the state. So yeah, absolutely. Transparency, efficiency are hugely needed here.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank you again for being here. This is it's just great to be able to interview you. And basically, the whole point of what I do here with the vetting process is attempting to bring issues forward and talking about them in ways that people like my age and around my age can understand, because young people have been so often for lack of a better term, just locked out of the political system and not given a seat
Yeah.
at the table. So if in the event that you became mayor, what would be your process into involving younger people and bringing young people into the conversation?
Yeah, I love how active you've become, Josh, and that you provide this resource for people, this interview series. I would one, there is in statute, there is the school committee, the state statute says that every school committee shall have a youth representative, a non-voting youth representative on it. I know that that's in the works right now with this current school committee. And I know some communities across the state have embraced it all along. Others have never had it. So it's a mixed bag. But this is something, it's so important. I mean, the people that are most impacted need to be at the table for the decisions that are being made about them. And they help make better decisions. You know, we need good information, we need good relationships, and we need appropriate technology. You know, those are three key ingredients for everything. And having a young adult, having, whether it's a high school senior, maybe a junior, as a non-voting member, that would be key. Other communities also have what they sometimes they call junior members on their conservation commissions, on their planning board. The other thing I want to do is to be able to have many more, have more town halls, so to speak, whether they're virtual, whether in person. I've also used other ways to gather information. Art can be really can be short, time constrained. Micro surveys or they can be longer surveys. Also, key informant interviews. I've used my whole career to get information, to gather input. Also, focus groups. I've led focus groups before. So there's many tools to pull information in, and even more tools to get information out. And we're not utilizing all the tools in the communications toolbox yet.
Mhm.
But I would work to use many more tools.
Absolutely. Um, so let's talk about roads for a second. As someone who has been in the passenger seat more than once, I can attest to the fact that some of the roads in Leominster aren't the best, and I have had people like adults in my life complain to me about like just the roads and the infrastructure and how it doesn't get much better once you're on the way over to Fitchburg. And so, my question to you would be: is working with Mayor Di Natale or whoever may be elected later this year, working with them to improve roads and just working with surrounding cities to improve infrastructure altogether. Would that be something you consider? Do you have a plan for that?
Yeah, that's, I'm not at all surprised you're asking this question because, I'm knocking on doors and talking to people all over the city. And if there's one recurring theme, it's that of infrastructure and specifically roads and sidewalks. Yeah, no, that's a key priority. The other thing I hear is traffic. It's not even just the condition of the actual roads, it's I can't get there. I can't get from north to south Leominster in under 30 minutes. And, that's depending on time of day, it's just kind of crazy. So we do get, as you know, some roads are the city is responsible for, and other roads the state is responsible for. But the key thing is that we need a capital improvement plan, which means, capital improvement meaning the stuff that takes bigger pieces of money. It's kind of like not one time thing, but maybe every 10 or 15 or 20 years thing, as opposed to an annual operational process. We don't have a capital improvement plan in the city, and that's most communities do. So that we would actually know that, like, your street, you would be able to look up your street and see, like, okay, 2024, it's on the docket to be redone. And okay, look at the sidewalks on Florence Street are going to be redone in 2027. And granted, you would adapt them and you adjust them as needed or if something changes, but people would know when they're going to happen instead of it being oh look, the road's closed. Oh look, can't get to my street. So no, in working with our state and federal delegation, that would be that's a key way to bring in additional state and federal resources to our city, and that's something that's not happening either. Our current mayor really operates more as as an island. It doesn't partner with our state and federal representatives and senators. So yeah, absolutely, roads, infrastructure, as I mentioned, infrastructure is one of my top priorities.
Mm-hmm. And the last actual question I have here before we move on to another thing. So talking about the campaigns overall, are you worried at all about with the nature of this campaign, about it resorting, either your campaign or perhaps your main opponent, Mayor Mazzuella's campaign, resorting too much to negativity and divisiveness and trying to divide the people of Leominster, just overall? Is that something you're worried about?
Yeah. You know, from past experience, that would tell me yes. And I, I feel like it's been a positive campaign, and I'm glad. I'm relieved. I want people to vote for the future. I want them to vote for me. Um, uh, if I want people to have a choice. I know I'm a qualified choice, and if more than half the voters are want to see a new leader help move the city forward, that's what will happen. Granted, I don't have the name recognition that my opponent does, but I'm also talking to a lot of voters one-to-one. It's not a flashy campaign. You're not going to see big ads or anything. You're not going to see huge signs or anything. It's because what I've learned, what I've always known, is that talking to people one-to-one is the way that they know, are you authentic? Are you a real person? Do you really care about your city? So yeah, it's a very different kind of campaign. There is a debate scheduled. I was invited to participate, and I accepted the invitation for October 14th that Flap TV is hosting it. I hope that will be a debate. I look forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. Now moving on to what I'm calling the lightning round. So I've got 8 issues here, and in about 2 sentences or less, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these issues. Bear in mind, I've interviewed politicians, I've interviewed classmates. More than once, they've gone over this 2-sentence limit. At this point, it's starting to become more of just an idea. But yeah. No, so 2 sentences or less, your thoughts on these issues. Issue number 1, we have climate change.
Bad. Real. Yeah, no, I've learned about climate change back when they called it the greenhouse effect. When I was an undergrad in college, I've been working for years on trying to be more efficient with how we use energy to heat our homes. Our transportation is the largest emitter of greenhouse gases. I've worked on increasing public transportation throughout the state. It's something we need to plan for in the city. We need a climate action plan, not just for the city, but through region. And I know that Montechusett Regional Planning Commission is working on it, starting to, and I want to be, as the largest city in the region, I want Leominster to be a leader in reducing and also planning for the changes.
Mm-hmm. Issue number 2, one that's become surprisingly relevant, abortion rights and the woman's right to choose.
Mm-hmm. I am a proud pro-choice individual. I'm a woman. I am, my body, my choice. And and I am a firm believer in that. I don't really, it's a health issue, and yeah, pro-choice.
Issue number 3, immigration policy.
Immigration policy. We need improved, clarified immigration policy at the federal level. We are a nation of immigrants. My family came from what was Russia, Poland, as well as England. We are all immigrants. People who come to this country and to our city make us richer, better, stronger. We need new policy, though, to clarify. It's too confusing. It's too hard to do the right thing.
Issue number 4, policing reform.
Police vote. As you know, we have a new, last year, this Massachusetts passed police reform. We we need to, again, we're a changing world. Our police departments, they need the resources to respond to the changing world we have. And that means being able to, have the staff, have the training to respond to behavioral health problems, to be able to respond to emotional crises within families, to respond to issues that result out of an illness. Substance use disorder, it is a disease, it is not a moral failing. And so certain issues, we need to have the resources in our first responders so that they can respond in a safe way for them, but also in a safe way for the person in need, because it's not always a crime that they're responding to. And that said, we need to be responsive, and we need to be clear as a community on what we expect of our first responders and what they expect of us as citizens.
Yeah. And on a similar note, issue number 5, the Black Lives Matter movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have on my porch homemade Black Lives Matter sign. I've been to Black Lives Matter rally. It's important. And I realize some people will say all lives matter, and that's not wrong either. But the fact is that Black, Indigenous, and people of color have been disproportionately impacted in negative ways over the years. And the phrase Black Lives Matter is to bring attention to the injustices and to the inequities that the people even today face due to institutional racism.
Mm-hmm. Issue number 6, LGBTQ plus rights.
Love is love is love is love. I am a staunch supporter of LGBTQ plus rights. It's like we're people, we're people, and rights need to be defended. And I will be a defender of them. I'm proud to say I've got the endorsement from the Massachusetts Stonewall Democrats, as well as the Mass Alliance, that they've endorsed my candidacy.
Issue number 7, universal health care.
Yes, please.
And the final issue I have here, possibly one of the hardest questions I've asked yet, one that has stumped everyone I've talked to so far. Which flavor of ice cream is the best?
Oh my God, mocha chip.
Good answer. Great answer.
What's hard about that?
Well, thank you so much that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for being here and being willing to sit down for a bit and ask a few questions and answer a few questions.
Thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness and these great questions.